Okay, straight into Vietnam by me. Okay, the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War was strictly this war between North Vietnam, which is the communists, and South Vietnam, the Democratic Republic. It lasted from 1964 to 1975 for America, and communism was a big role of it. Hundreds of thousands of troops, American troops, were deployed and killed, which caused one of the most controversial topics ever in America ever. But the main reason was people wonder, why were we in the war? People were confused as to why we're in the war because the government never explained exactly why we're in the war. But I think it was mainly because our government was scared of communism. This rapid spread of communism during this era, like after the Cold War, during the Cold War, whatever, it scared Americans and they wanted to stop it. So they went over to help South Vietnam fight in the war against communist country North Vietnam. Another name for the Vietnam War is called the Living Room War. The reason why it's called Living Room War is because the media had a big role during this time. They were on a lot of stuff, and people watched them all the time on TV in their living rooms. The media definitely had a biased viewpoint against this war. They caused many Americans to believe that we did not need to be in this war, that it was a dangerous thing, and that there was no reason, that we had no benefit from this war. And many Americans believed it. It caused protests, many anti-war activists, all sorts of things like that. And it just took a big toll on America because of these riots. The government wanted to stop these by painting a deceptive image of the war, showing that America was winning against North Vietnam, the communist country. But American journalists in Vietnam quickly heard of these things and showed the real image of what was happening. CBS News footage showed that American troops were burning a village with no regards of the children or women that were there, and which it painted a bad image on the American army and the government for what they were doing over there in Vietnam. President Lyndon B. Johnson, one of his famous quotes said, "Your boys just shat on the American flag," to the CBS News ad for posting that image. Now during this time, a very crucial thing was the 1968 Tet Offensive. The Tet Offensive was a series of North Vietnam attacks that basically showed Americans that North Vietnam was not going anywhere. Regardless if they won or lost the war, they were going to try to get they were trying to get Americans out of Vietnam. They wanted to defeat Americans in any way possible because they were a communist country and they wanted to stop any idea of a republic, basically. The communist forces had these attacks, and it scared Americans, and it showed them that they needed to get out of the war, and they showed how serious these communists were. Political change in America. Now, after his first term, Lyndon B. Johnson decided he wasn't going to run for a second term because of all the stress from the Vietnam War and stuff. For the Republican side was going to be Richard Nixon, and the Democratic side was Hubert Humphrey, which was Lyndon B. Johnson's vice president. Robert Kennedy was also going to run for Democrat side because he had many liberalistic views, which was very ideal during that time. But he was assassinated, which caused a lot of liberal and democratic revolts, and a lot of people to honestly kind of hate Hubert Humphrey. Richard Nixon fed off this by showing that he will free America from the war in Vietnam and that he will help Americans out in any way. Americans sided with him, he got elected, but he was kind of lying, and he decided he was just going to do the madman strategy, which is what they called it, where he attacked storage lines for North Vietnam, and North Vietnam did not like this. He was trying to scare North Vietnam out of the war, but it did not work, and they continued to fight, and it caused a lot of revolts in America too, because he did this without, talking to any of his, government allies and stuff like that. But because of these rapid social changes in the 60s and the anti-war protests starting civil order, many Americans switched to conservatism. The end of the war. By 1973, hundreds of thousands of Americans had died. So the Vietnamese governments created the Paris Peace Accords, which ended America's force in Vietnam. 2 years later, North Vietnam took control of Vietnam and wiped out South Vietnam. The Vietnam War took a toll on America. It poisoned what America stood for and hurt people's faith in their government. Many American veterans and Americans were angered with their government because they believed they put them in a war that they did not belong in, and they deserved, they needed better, because a lot of soldiers lost their lives. And here's a video of John Kerry, an excerpt from John Kerry's anti-war speech in 1971.
The process by which the United States washes her hands of Vietnam, someone has to give up his life so that the United States doesn't have to admit something that the entire world already knows, so that we can't say that we've made a mistake. Someone has to die so that President Nixon won't be, and these are his words, the first president to lose a war. And we are asking Americans to think about that. Because how do you ask a man to be the last man to die in Vietnam? How do you ask a man to be the last man to die for a mistake? We are here to ask, and we're here to ask vehemently, where are the leaders of our country? Where is the leadership? We're here to ask, where are McNamara, Barstow, Bundy, Kilpatrick, and so many others? Where are they now that we, the men whom they sent off to war, have returned? These are commanders who have deserted their troops, and there is no more serious crime in the law of war. The Army says they never leave their wounded. The Marines say they never leave even their dead. These men have left all the casualties and retreated behind a pious shield of public rectitude. They've left the real stuff of their reputations bleaching behind them in the sun in this country. And finally, this administration has done us the ultimate dishonor. They have attempted to disown us and the sacrifices we made for this country. In their blindness and fear, they have tried to deny that we are veterans or that we served in Nam. We do not need their testimony. Our own scars and stumps of limbs are witness enough for others, and for ourselves, we wish that a merciful God could wipe away our own memories of that service, as easily as this administration has wiped their memories of us. But all that they have done, and all that they can do by this denial, is to make more clear than ever our own determination to undertake one last mission, to search out and destroy the last vestige of this barbaric war, to pacify our own hearts, to conquer the hate and fear that have driven this country these last 10 years and more. And more. And so when 30 years from now our brothers go down the street without a leg, without an arm or a face, and small boys ask why, we will be able to say Vietnam, and not mean a desert, not a filthy, obscene memory, but mean instead the place where America finally turned, and where soldiers like us helped it in the turning. Thank you.